Today, I'll be showing you how to make a simple yet delicious pancake breakfast with little tips and tricks so that you can deliver a restaurant quality plate to the table. At the time of making this video, Mother's Day is right around the corner, but you can prepare this breakfast anytime you want to celebrate someone special or just want to have a nice breakfast on the weekend. To get started, the first thing we'll want to do is prepare a blueberry topping. So in a small sauce pot over medium heat, add 140 grams of blueberries, 12 grams of sugar, and 3 tablespoons of water. Give everything a quick stir so that the blueberries get coated in sugar and wait for this to come up to a simmer. When you reach a simmer, reduce your heat down to low and continue simmering for about another 10 minutes, stirring your blueberries occasionally. While waiting for your blueberries to simmer, this would be a great time to prepare the strawberries. So for this step, you'll need roughly 225 grams worth of strawberries, and to get started, cut off the green tops using a knife, and then you'll want to slice them thinly. How you slice them exactly doesn't really matter, but I think slicing them like this is great because they kind of look like little hearts. Once you finish slicing your strawberries, transfer them into a bowl and toss them in about 16 grams of sugar. The exact amount of sugar you'll need will depend on the ripeness of your strawberries. When all of your strawberries are coated in sugar, you can set them aside. Now let's check back in on the blueberries. After about 10 minutes, your blueberries will have broken down a fair bit and they'll be coated in their own sauce. From here, add in the juice from a quarter of a lemon and also a cornstarch slurry that is made up of 1 teaspoon of cornstarch plus 1 tablespoon of water. Stir everything together and wait for it to come back to a boil. When your sauce is returned to a boil, mix in an additional 30 grams of blueberries. Adding in some blueberries at the end of the cooking process will help create some variety, as the new ones will contrast with the blueberries that have been cooked down. After adding in the second batch of blueberries, turn off the heat. The sauce surrounding your blueberries shouldn't be too thick. If it is, you can add in a little bit of water to loosen things up. At this point, you should also give your blueberries a taste test. If things are too sweet, you can balance things out with a small squeeze of lemon juice. And if things are too sour, you can add in just a touch of sugar. If everything is tasting just right, transfer out your blueberries to their serving bowl. Now within a few minutes after being coated in sugar, your strawberries will be coated in their own strawberry sauce. With our fruit toppings taken care of, the next step is going to be to prepare the pancake batter. In a mixing bowl, add 220 grams of all-purpose flour and 11 grams of baking powder. Whisk for about a minute so that the baking powder is well distributed throughout the flour and then set aside. In a separate bowl for the wet ingredients, add 50 grams of melted and unsalted butter, 36 grams of sugar, and 5 grams of salt. Give everything a quick mix to cool down the melted butter before adding in 2 large eggs. Take some time here to really beat in your eggs well, and then add 285 grams of milk and 5 grams of vanilla extract. After giving the wet ingredients one last mix, it's time to add in the pre-mixed flour and baking powder. When mixing your pancake batter, you do not need to mix until everything is smooth. This can lead to overmixing, and overmixing the batter makes pancakes tough. Instead, mix until you no longer see any large clumps or pockets of dry flour. Small lumps of flour are okay, and most of them will work themselves out as the batter rests. Pancakes cook better when the flour in the batter has time to hydrate. So if your pancake batter appears a little too loose now, it'll thicken as it rests. While your batter is resting, preheat a 12-inch nonstick skillet over medium heat. And now this next step is optional, but if you have oven-safe plates, set your oven to its slowest setting. In my case, it's 170 degrees Fahrenheit. So unless you have a large electric griddle that allows you to cook most of your pancakes at once, an issue you may run into is that your earlier batches of pancakes will become cold by the time you finish the later ones. By preheating our plates, our pancakes will stay warm for longer and everyone at the table will be able to enjoy warm pancakes. Now to do this, you really need to make sure that you have the right plates. My plates are thick, stoneware, oven-safe plates. If you aren't sure if whether or not your plates are oven safe, don't do this as you could risk cracking your plates. Now while your skillet is preheating on the stove, add 120 grams of cold heavy cream to a small mixing bowl. Whisk your heavy cream until you have soft peaks. If you're using a hand mixer, start your mixer on its lowest setting and slowly increase the speed as your cream thickens. Soft peaks is when your cream is able to hold its shape, but the tip of the peak flops over when the beater is lifted. From here, you can add 12 grams of sugar and a couple drops of vanilla extract. Resume whisking until you have stiff peaks, but be careful as this happens rather quickly, and if you beat your cream for too long, it will take on a grainy texture. When you have stiff peaks, the tip of your cream should hold its shape without collapsing. At this point, you can move your whipped cream to the fridge until it's time to serve. After making the whipped cream, the pancake batter will have thickened a lot since we've last seen it. Mine was too thick, so I needed to add an extra teaspoon of milk. When correcting the consistency of your batter, you only need to make small changes. Add a teaspoon of milk at a time if it is too thick, or 2 teaspoons of flour if it is too thin. Your batter should drop off the whisk smoothly. If it is too thick, it'll drop off in chunks, and if it is too thin, it'll all run off soon after lifting up your whisk. If there are any remaining small lumps in your batter, that is fine, as they will all disappear as it cooks. Before you start cooking your pancakes, turn off your oven if you're preheating your plates. You can check the temperature of your pan by dripping some water off your hand. If the water immediately evaporates, it is too hot, or if the water just sits there in the pan, it is not hot enough. If your water bubbles and stays around for a while, it's perfect. Rub a frozen stick of butter on the areas of the pan where you'll be cooking your pancakes. This will prevent butter from burning in the areas without batter and waste less butter. Your butter should make a crackling sound indicating that the water is boiling out. If your butter immediately turns brown, your pan is too hot. To make 4-inch pancakes, ladle in about 1.5 tablespoons of batter. Smaller pancakes cook faster and more evenly compared to large ones, and I also think that they look better on a plate. The exact temperature you need to cook your pancakes will depend on your stove and pan, but medium or just a little south of medium should be fine. You know it's time to flip when the bubbles in the center of your pancake begin to pop. If you want, you can take a peek at the first side for browning prior to flipping. About a minute or so later after flipping your pancakes, the second side should be set enough for you to move it around in the pan and soak up all of the remaining butter. When the second side of your pancakes are brown, transfer them to one of the warm plates from the oven with the side that was cooked first facing up. You also may need a kitchen towel to handle the plates at first. Place your pancakes on the plate the way you're going to serve them. Overlapping them can help hide any imperfections. When you're done, return your plate back to the oven. The oven is off, but the oven's ambient temperature should be enough to keep the pancakes warm. When you remove the pancakes from the pan, it is a good idea to reduce the heat to low until you get the next batch on the pan. This will prevent the next set of pancakes from burning. And before applying more butter, wipe your pan clean using a paper towel. When the next batch of pancakes are in the pan, return the heat back to medium. When you are making your second to last batch of pancakes, get another nonstick skillet over medium heat and add half a tablespoon of butter for each egg in your scrambled eggs. I have 8 eggs, so I use 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter. While your butter is melting, crack your eggs into a bowl and season them with salt and pepper. The perfect amount of salt is 0.9% of the eggs by weight. 8 large eggs weigh about 400 grams, so I need 3.6 grams of salt. If you do not have a precision scale, you can just season your eggs using your intuition. Whisk your eggs well and then add them to the pan once all the butter is melted. After adding your eggs to the pan, give them a light stir using a silicone spatula. Then wait about 30 seconds to a minute or until some of the egg is set before stirring again. How often you agitate your eggs is really going to depend on the size of curd you want. I'm going for large curds, so I will not be stirring my eggs too often. Scrambled eggs should be cooked low and slow, so if your eggs are cooking too fast, lower the heat. Try to push the egg that's on the outside of the pan towards the center. Stir more frequently as your eggs get closer to being finished. When your eggs are about 80% of the way through cooking, or similar in doneness to what you see here, turn off the heat and finish cooking the eggs with the heat that is left over in the pan. Finishing the eggs off the heat will prevent them from drying out, especially since we'll be leaving them in the pan until it's time to serve. Now it is time to put it all together. On one side of your pancakes, put down a quarter of your strawberries. And on the other side of your pancakes, put down a quarter of your blueberries. Use a fine mesh sieve to dust your pancakes with a little bit of powdered sugar. Put 2 eggs worth of scrambled eggs towards the bottom of the plate. And lastly, top off your pancakes with a couple dollops of whipped cream. Also, you'll want to serve soon after adding the whipped cream because it will melt rather quickly from the heat of the hot pancakes. The most recent batch of pancakes should go to whoever's being celebrated that day, so make sure to prepare and serve those first. These pancakes are so good that you can honestly eat them plain, but the fruit toppings and whipped cream really just make the whole thing an experience. And the pancakes themselves are incredibly tender and full of flavor, which is something you don't really get from box mix pancakes in my experience. If you plan on following this recipe, be sure to read the description as I'll be providing additional tips that I didn't mention in the video, such as what you can prepare the night before among other things so that you can successfully prepare this breakfast. And another great thing to do if you can would be to get a sibling to help you prepare this recipe. It will help make things a little less stressful, and it will also go a long way into making Mother's Day a little more special. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there.